Welcome to the Michigan Early Literacy Collaborative Module. The standard presented in this PowerPoint will focus on RL.K.1. This is one part of the literature standards for kindergarten reading and the Common Core. Reading standards for literature. This module will provide ways to prompt and support readers by asking and answering questions about important details in stories, to use a balanced literacy model in the classroom, to check for understanding through formative assessments, to understand the assessment cycle, to integrate the standard in reading and writing instruction. This picture shows all of the anchored standards for kindergarten. All of them have equal value and must work together. Our focus will be the blue sprocket, which is reading literature. A learning trajectory is a natural developmental progression in learning and development. Researchers have been identifying the learning trajectories in reading, spelling, mathematics, and even science. If teachers understand their trajectories, they can identify where students are and what their next levels are, and they can build much more effective lessons. The assessment cycle of testing and the information gathered at data reviews will drive your instruction through various things. When we look at how you teach the standard will depend on the time of year. Again, what it would look like in the fall will be different in the winter and different from the spring. You will build on these anchor standards by establishing your classroom routines and procedures. The curriculum we teach is driven by an assessment cycle. The data from the assessment drives our instruction, revises our strategies to move towards our goals and needs of children. Components of a balanced literacy program are stated here on this slide, and components of the balanced literacy program that create success in kindergarten have all of these facets working together. The Common Core obviously is our curriculum that we're teaching, but more importantly, with our reading instruction through Reader's Workshop and differentiating our small group instruction, looking at Writer's Workshop by providing students the foundation and procedures to write daily, and then working with words. That's also working with vocabulary, and it's more than just your phonics instruction. When you look at all of these pieces put together, this is what our balanced literacy program consists of. Now, at the bottom where you see the pink arrow, 120 to 150 minutes, that is unrealistic in a kindergarten classroom, especially at the beginning of the school year. But then again, start small, start building your stamina in these areas. You know, it will increase when it gets to the springtime. You will be looking at least a good hour or 40 minutes of each of reading and writing that you'll see if you're using those writers and workshops. Intentional teachers constantly think about goals and outcomes they want for their students and how their instructional decisions move their students towards their goals. This helps to create reading success. We look at the concepts about print, our phonemic awareness, our phonics instruction, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. All of these play a part of that, and comprehension being at the top. All of those things need to be in place for children to be successful readers. When we look at scaffolding children's learning, we're really looking at helping to build connections through their learning. And in kindergarten, we do these through multiple venues. You know, we have visuals, we have our anchor charts, we use their first language, read-alouds, modeling, gestures, stories, sentence starters, you know, graphic organizers. All of those things help to children build those connections. When we look at the zone of proximal development, this is really the difference between what our learner can do without help and what he or she can do with help or prompting and support, as the Common Core suggests. The multiple intelligence here with Howard Gardner's theory on multiple intelligences, you know, it's important for us to know the way children learn and process information. All of these things play in a part of differentiating your instruction within the classroom. What does the gradual release of responsibility model look and sound like? Dr. Douglas Fisher, professor of language and literacy and education at San Diego State University, states that students need to develop their expertise in all aspects of reading and writing, including oral language, phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. He also said this was important too. He also knows that the skills of a teacher and how the teacher uses that valuable instructional time matters. The gradual release of responsibility model of instruction requires that teachers shift from assuming all the I do's to the we do and to the you do. Now, this gradual release may occur over a day, a week, a month, or a year, depending on what content and subject you're teaching. But then again, the gradual release of responsibility model of instruction has been documented as an effective approach for improving literacy achievement and literacy outcomes for ELL students too. So, food for thought. As we look at unpacking the standard and understanding the standard, let's define it in terms of Common Core. It's defined as with prompting and support, you ask and answer questions about key details in a text, which is your story. Now, when we unpack these pieces here, I found this information from the readtennessee.org website. It gives you great tools in prioritizing your time and unpacking the standard. Lots of RTI support, some really neat things there. So I would highly suggest you check that out. Now, as we unpack this, is when students ask and answer questions during activities, such as a teacher-led picture walk, they begin to realize that illustrations help them understand the story. Question asking and answering supports vocabulary development, oral language, and active listening. Questions about the beginning, middle, and end of a story help students learn about narrative text structure too. Understanding the parts of the mini lesson in a workshop model. The lesson plan that was created for this module is a workshop model, and I wanted to talk about the 4 parts that are here, kind of the architecture, if you will, of the mini lesson. First, you have your connection, then you have your teach, then you have your active engagement, and then you have your link or your share. All of these things work together to help with that gradual release, giving children ownership of their learning, and providing the learning in small doses so they can take it and apply it and make connections. Here's your connection. We'll be using the mentor text, the crayon box that talked. State your learning target. Readers, we can ask and answer questions about key details in stories. Here's your connection. Readers, we can ask and answer questions about important details in stories. Before we read the story again, take a look at the cover and notice the facing of the crayons. I'm wondering why these crayons didn't work together. Teaching point and modeling. Today, readers, we will be rereading our text, The Crayon Box That Talked. I want you to pay close attention to the text and make some connections to the question I asked you, and let's see how they solve this problem. Here's your teach. Here the teacher models or explains the precise teaching point by using a familiar text as you explain or show examples. This is the I do part of the gradual release. If you've not read the story out loud, or if you have not, you might want to go through and have that done before you teach this lesson. Or as I'm going through the story, as I'm rereading the story again, you may also choose to flag pages. This is just a different option for you. Teach. Readers, today I will be reading the story again so we can answer questions about important details. As I'm reading, I'll be noticing parts of the story and I'll be modeling my thinking. Teaching point. Our focus today will be on learning why the crayons did not get along. We call that a problem. When we ask questions while we're reading, it helps us to learn and answer questions. We need to remember our narrative text story features as we think about the questions. You can look at the question words anchor charts or refer to that or some of the questions you might be asking, and then also look at the narrative text features too if you need to review before proceeding. Students will need to watch and listen to learn. The questions we need to ask are specific to the text type, which is asking about a story. And this is how we ask and answer questions about key details in a story. So you're making the connection between the questions and wanting to know information. Active engagement. Here the readers try the teaching point through guided practice. Now it's your turn to try. Restate the teaching point here. This is the you do. Model your thinking by asking questions as you read and notice the text features. Review the charts on the slide in the pink. What is a narrative text? What are the purposes of a narrative text? so they get in mind to know that the different text features here are important. Provide some wait time to think. Then pair and share why the crayons did not get along. You may ask them why or have them explain their thinking once they're done sharing and back brought to the group. Set up time for sharing. You might want to look at 30 seconds, 20 seconds, depending on your kids. It's at the beginning of the year, you may just give them 10. And again, model this. You may want to get down on the floor and do a think and a pair and share as you turn and talk so that they have the opportunity to see what your expectation is and you can model that for them. Readers, again, restate your teaching point when you're finished. Readers, you've just shared key details about this story by listening and thinking about the question before we started reading. Here's your link. Here we set up children to transfer that teaching point to their independent reading and writing. So today, readers, we read a story about a crayon box that talked. We noticed in the story how the crayons did not like each other and did not get along. We also answered questions about the details in the story. And here's your share. Now this is optional. Let's read the poem from the story and think about ourselves and our friends in the classroom. You can do additional activities with the story that will help children learn the power of their words and how it affects others. Use a management system for sharing that works for your classroom. Not everyone will get to share at this point. This is part of that you do, but then again, using something you've already established will help eliminate a problem and prevent a problem. End your lesson by naming the teaching point. I can answer and ask and answer questions about important details in a story. The skills needed for this lesson assumes that your students will have an understanding of two crucial classroom strategies. The first being understanding how to be a good listener and a speaker, and the second being that they understand what they need to do when they think first, then pair and share their thinking to answer questions that were stated before rereading the text. So it's important to do that. I put this anchor chart here for them to think, pair, and then share. Your turn and talk, need any, all of those things are similar. You choose the language that works for your classroom. Here you have your formative assessment piece. We'll notice and name the expectation, looking for the understanding. We're going to teach the skill asking and answering questions as you model your thinking out loud and guide the process. Your evidence will be that turn and talk and then your discussion. Your evaluation, you're going to listen to the responses, and this helps them to make the connection. And then also here, I would do my quick check. This is using my fingers. 1, I don't get it, I need help. 2, I kind of get it, I need a little help. 3, I got it. 4, I got it and can teach a friend. So as you're done thinking here, your formative assessment piece will be smaller. But it's really good to make sure that you get a visual understanding of what's going on. Then you can revisit and revise as needed. You might need to adjust your expectations to the time of year that you're teaching the standard, but then again, the evidence is going to be in your reading and your writing. This is setting the stage, giving them the opportunities to be successful. Here are some additional modifications and things that you can use. Obviously, there's some art projects you can do. There's a constructed response that you can do. If you need to show evidence of teaching this standard, again, this could be a work sample that you've done, but it's very important you provide those daily opportunities to ask and answer questions that pertain to narrative text. Explicit instruction, modeling, and reading high-quality literature are key. Here are standards that are integrated with this module. Try to find ways to integrate these standards in daily activities. Multiple opportunities and exposure to our content standards promote success across the curriculum. Thank you for taking your time to listen to this module on reading literature and using that in stories. My hope is that you'll take this information and make it your own and apply these ideas to make your students successful readers.